first thing Luvon noticed was the scent. It was not the cold, damp musk of the Underdark, nor the scorched air of some battlefield. No, it was sweeter, like the first bloom of spring filtered through wild laughter and starlight. The air shimmered around him, gliding softly like silk across his skin. He looked down and saw no feet, only the suggestion of his form, trailing wisps of silver light across a forest floor that moved of its own volition. He was not walking. Arborea was carrying him. The Everglade rose before him, vast and radiant. Towering maple, birch, and oak trees spiraled upward like green-stained cathedral spires. Their leaves whispered with ancient songs, dancing to winds that seemed to sing rather than blow. It was too much, almost, too beautiful, too alive, the kind of beauty that made the soul ache. He remembered then the cave, the beholder, the way the light had bent around its eye stalks like glass, cracking under pressure. His blade, drenched in defiance, had found no glory, only purpose. He hadn't fought for fame. He had fought because his Eladrin brethren would not have escaped without him, because someone had to stand in the path of the impossible. The glade curved forward, and an oak gate, ancient and carved with images of stars and stags, opened for him without a sound. Inside, the halls of the dreamers awaited. Kaela Eladrin moved with the effortless grace of moonlight on still water, their eyes gleaming with ageless wonder. Fur Eladrin, wrapped in melodies of fire and silk, hummed soft songs that seemed to paint the very air. Beauty and knowledge were not idle things here, they were alive, breathing, glowing. Every step was a note in a larger symphony. And then he saw him, Corellon Larethian, the creator, the first of the elves, a figure both regal and ephemeral, like a memory too vast for mortal minds to hold. His form flickered between colors, silver, sky blue, and starlight, his eyes reflecting 1,000 constellations yet unnamed. When he spoke, the forest paused to listen. "Luvon," he said, voice like harp strings strung across thunder. "You have come to Arborea not because you sought it, but because your soul remembered what others forget. That nobility is not born of law, but of love. That greatness is not seized, but given." Luvon said nothing. There was nothing to say. He felt the weight of that truth settle into him like a new heartbeat. Corellon extended a hand. "Take my hand," the god whispered, "and be part of something that is neither kingdom nor reward, but simply what was always waiting, the peace of divine wonder, the freedom of endless discovery." Luvon reached forward, and as their fingers touched, the forest burst into song. And so, the soul of Luvon entered the Everglade, not as a warrior, but as a dreamer, where beauty has no limits, and eternity is a garden yet to be explored. It is a plain of passion and peace. It is abundant nature in its patchwork glory. It is the domain of elven lords. The Olympian glades of Arborea are a crazy quilt of climates and environments, all of which thrive. Arborea contains great woods of towering maples, birch, and oak. These great deciduous trees strain skyward, leaving a forest floor relatively free of undergrowth and brush. The ground beneath the canopy itself is a rolling landscape of velvet moss and ferns. But the forestscape sometimes retreats before open glades of wildflowers, fields of swaying wheat and barley, and neat rows of fruit trees untended by any human hand. Here are trees that have never seen the woodsman's axe, fields rich with grain, and orchards heavy with fruit. The very air of Arborea seems charged with anticipation and excitement. Sudden squalls brew up out of nowhere, beating the tree-lined paths with heavy winds. They pass within minutes and leave behind warm, sunny arcs of light filtering through the forest canopy. In the distance, there always seems to be music. Sometimes the elves and the fae are playing, But just as often, the faint tune is simply the wind curling through the boles of the great trees. Arborea is a place with flowers in bloom and trees bearing fruit simultaneously. There are uplands covered with snow, but even the snow shines beneath a crystal blue sky. Arborea is almost overwhelming in its beauty, and the land embodies both wilderness and loveliness in one package. Yet only the top layer has the great forest implied in the name of the plain. Arborea's second layer is an endless ocean, and its third layer, a borderless desert of white dust. All three layers are places of mercurial weather, sudden attacks, and strong passions. Arborea is a plain of great joy and sorrow. Celestials are common in Arborea, especially the Eladrin, powerful elf-like protectors of the plain. The best known and most common of this breed is the Gala, which are often hunting in the wilderness of this plain. In addition to Gala Eladrin, the Fur Eladrin, guardians of beauty and art, are common here. Both appear elven, but they have a more noble demeanor than elves of the material plane. Though regal-looking, the Eladrin are fierce in combat. Evil creatures lurking in Arborea quake in their boots at the thought of an Eladrin hunting party. Many Lilans make their homes in Arborea, thriving on the emotions that ripple through the plain. Arborea is also the home of many celestial or anarchic versions of creatures found on the material plane. Celestial creatures tend to leave travelers alone unless crossed, at which point they fight with relish. Anarchic creatures, on the other hand, are as unreliable and unpredictable as you would expect. Arborea has two common types of petitioners. The first are the spirits of the elven dead, whose souls have migrated to Arborea and their final reward. Some infuse the plane itself. Others are reformed into celestial or anarchic creatures, and others serve as petitioners in the elven realm of Arvandor, the first layer. The last act as scouts and wardens for the communities on the plain, serving the elven court in their magic glades and great castles. The deity of the elves, Corellan Larethian, rewards worthy souls in the afterlife with elven form and service in his oak-lined halls. Here they enjoy an afterlife of hunts and celebrations in the elven fashion. Other petitioners may be found in Arborea besides the elven souls on the plain. Called Bacchae, these petitioners are wild mobs of drunken revelers found reclining in glades or running through the forest in raving, wine-sotted celebrations. The Bacchae are satyr-like, caught in mid-transformation between man and beast. They are spirits of equal measures of good and chaos, living for the moment and making it the best moment possible. The greatest danger they pose to travelers is enticing newcomers to join in their celebrations. It began on a warm and starlit night in Arvandor, where the canopy of ancient trees whispered secrets only the wind could carry. Beneath their leaves, constellations of fireflies danced in rhythms too perfect to be accidental, threads of divine artistry glimmering in the dark. Here, where every leaf shimmered with memory and magic, Araleth Lethoranil stood beneath the twilight. He was as much a part of the dusk as the stars themselves. Cloaked in robes woven from twilight and bearing a staff of silver-etched moonwood, Araleth gazed across the lands he helped illuminate each night. His realm was one of soft transitions, the hush between sun and moon, between waking and dream. And tonight, that liminal moment had brought him a calling. Melira Taralyn had come, stepping lightly between the roots of a silver linden. Her presence carried on the melody of a soft harp. A new goddess among the Seldarine, born from inspiration and longing, Melira was a muse made manifest, a song given divine shape. Her golden hair shimmered with harmony, and her laughter held the resonance of 100 joyous halls. Araleth welcomed her not with fanfare, but with silence, a gift more precious to a bard than most would guess. "You wish to sing of Arborea," Araleth said, his voice a dusk-laced echo. But to capture its song, you must first walk its rhythm. Melira bowed her head. I would know the heartbeats of its 3 layers, that I might compose a melody that dances like the waters of Aquala, sighs like the dust of Mithardir, and shines like the stars above Arvandor. He offered her his hand. Then walk with me, muse of the minstrels. Let the realms sing to you in their own voice. First, they passed through Arvandor, where golden sun filtered through emerald leaves, and the laughter of elven souls rang in clearings woven with magic. Hunts became harmony, and feasts turned to fugues. The air shimmered with music, and the very stars above seemed to pause and listen. Beneath the great oaks, the court of the Seldarine wove its eternal play, love, mirth, time, and death dancing their endless patterns. Melira heard it all. Seonine's whispers in dreams, Hanali's laughter over wine, Labelus's ticking harp of eternity, and Corellan's heartbeat in every banner that waved from his high white tower. Next, they journeyed to Aqualor, where no land kissed the horizon. Oceans layered atop oceans, sky reflected endlessly beneath the waves. Here, deep Sashelas ruled in splendor, his voice like the tide, gentle in one breath, thundering in the next. Dolphins sang ballads older than time. Coral reefs glowed with melody. Melira floated in stillness and wept at the serene power of it. She sang then, a wordless hum that the water itself answered. Finally, they descended to Mithardir, a place of forgotten songs and quiet ends. White dust spread endless and windless, the remnants of dreams too vast or too fragile to remain. No spirits lingered, no voices called, and yet Araleth knelt and sifted the dust through his fingers. This too is Arborea, he said, softly, a place where inspiration rests when all its echoes are spent. Melira pressed her ear to the dust. There was no sound. And then she realized this silence was the ending of a perfect chord. They returned to Arvandor by starlight. Melira sat by a fire beneath the canopy and began to play. The music was no simple tune, but a journey, from laughter and revelry, through the echoes of water into the hush of memory, and finally returning to the starlit wonder above it all. The Seldarine listened, Corellan smiled, and Araleth, from the shadowed edge of the gathering, cast his gaze upward, where Melira's song joined the stars, forever a part of the twilight. Most travelers know Arvandor as the realm of the elven court of Corellon Larethian, the mythical Seldarine. It is a place of great open spaces beneath the trees. Within these canopied clearings lie the settlements of the chosen of Arvandor, engaged in an idealized elven life. In the day, there are hunts and challenges. In the evenings, feats and tales told around the fire. The cycle of the day and night matches the material plane, with a golden sun beaming among a milky river of stars at night. The nights are warm, and even beneath the trees, great fireflies form their own elastic constellations among the huge oaks and lindens. The masters of Arvandor, known as the Seldarine, rule it with an artistic hand. The Seldarine's halls can be natural, huge cathedrals grown from the living trees. They can also be wondrous palaces, made of crystal and white marble with golden towers, as befits the deity of such a noble race. Corellon Larethian's tower is the latter type. Festooned with colourful banners, it dominates the surrounding countryside. But only elves and Corellon's allies are permitted through its doors to share in the song and feast. Corellon has divided some of his duties as deity of the elves among members of his court. Sehanin Moonbow wields power over death and dreams. Hanali Selanil is the paragon of love and beauty, and Labellus Enereth is the administrator of time. Aedri Fienia is the master of air and weather. Erevan Ileser is behind much of the court's mischief, and Fenmarel Mesterine is the ambassador to the wild elves. Finally, Deep Seychelles is the deity of the sea elves. The second layer of Arborea is an eternal ocean. It is like the elemental plane of water, and indeed there are vortices between the two. But unlike that inner plane, the layer of Aquila has both a surface and a bottom. At its lower reaches, it's as black as night. This layer is the home of the Deep Seychelles, the deity of the sea elves. His realm is a construct of coral, gold, and marble veined with streaks of blue and green. The water around it is crystal blue and glows of its own volition. Deep Seychelles grants the ability to breathe water to those who find their way into the blue waters of his realm. What the layer lacks is islands, for great storms stalk its surface, swamping any boats that dare its heavy seas. The layer is subject to quicksilver changes in the weather. Such weather takes the form of great underwater currents that drag the traveller miles off course. Sea life fills this layer, most of it either celestial or anarchic in nature. Larger beasts and aberrations can be found by explorers who swim deep enough. It is the endpoint of the river Oceanus, which weaves its way through many of the upper plains. Yet there are maelstroms within its depths that might lead back to the river's headwaters. So perhaps the river is like a snake swallowing its own tail, endless in nature. Those seeking to escape this layer can be swept away by one of the maelstroms, but only at the risk of encountering more unfriendly creatures elsewhere. Mithadir means white dust in the elven language, and indeed this layer is a desert of fine, white, chalky grit that extends forever. This layer was once a great forest as well as home to creatures that campfire stories alternatively describe as giants or titan-like deities. Why they no longer live on the layer is unknown, but Mithadir is now an empty layer. Persistent explorers can still find the great towers and tombs of this lost race of deities or giants, their minarets breaking through the grit like fingers straining to escape a premature grave. Brave travelers seek out this layer in the hopes of prying away the secrets of the lost giants. More often than not, the incessant winds of this layer wind up grinding the bones of such explorers into powder. As with the rest of Arborea, the weather is sudden and dramatic. Lightning storms regularly last across the desert, driving huge dust storms ahead of them. Years passed, but in Arborea, time moved not as a river, but as a breeze. Gentle, wandering, full of song. Luvon had walked through glades of starlight and valleys where the grass whispered poetry. He had studied beneath the furrows, danced with gaolers in the moon-bathed amphitheatres, and listened to stories sung by the trees themselves. Yet always, something called him forward. Something just beyond every hill, every glade. A name carried on the wind, Evergold. He found it at last in a valley cradled by sun-kissed cliffs, where the sky bent closer, as if Arborea herself wished to look upon it, the Evergold. It was more than a fountain, a pool of water so impossibly pure it shimmered like spun glass, surrounded by sands of soft gold that gleamed even in shade. Light passed through it, not just reflected, but purified, as if the fountain filtered all ugliness and left only the essence of grace. To look upon it was to feel small and ageless all at once. It stilled the mind, humbled the heart. Luvon stepped to its edge, the sand warming beneath his feet. Here, the waters did not speak, but they understood. They knew the pride of the elves, their ancient mastery of word and craft, their often blinding confidence, their sorrow-tinged beauty. The Evergold did not judge. It simply remembered. It was a tribute not to perfection, but to the pursuit of it, to the way the elves had sought to weave grace into everything they touched. From diplomacy to spellcraft, from music to war. Luvon gazed into the water and saw himself, not as he had been in life, nor as he appeared now, but as he was. Every word he had spoken, every choice, every moment of defiance, of doubt, of wonder. And the pool embraced him. He knelt, touched the surface, and the water rippled with golden light. It welcomed him not because he was flawless, but because he had strived, because he had understood. And in that moment, Luvon became a part of Arborea, not a guest, not even a soul returned, but a chord in its eternal melody, a voice in its wind, a dreamer, finally home.